First of all, hello everyone. My name is Dan Sullivan, so I'm the head of partnerships here at Cuseum. And first of all, just want to say thank you for being here. This is our final alumni hour of 2020. So thanks for all your enthusiasm and support over the last 4 or so months that we've been hosting these discussions. And they're all recorded, so if you ever want to go back and take a look at a past discussion, feel free to do that. This really has become an amazing community, and we can't wait to continue these conversations in the new year. So for those who are unfamiliar, just real quick, Cuseum, we work with cultural organizations and higher education institutions to help them increase engagement with their members and alumni using tools like digital alumni engagement cards. Couple quick housekeeping items. First of all, while you're here, we'd love to hear who's joining. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, who you are, what institution you're joining from, and as we're kind of working through the questions today, throughout the conversation, chime in with your thoughts and your strategies. That's part of what makes these conversations so great, is both we get our panelists talking through their ideas and their concepts, and then we've got folks in the chat engaging as well. And as you are working through the chat, make sure that little blue box says panelists and attendees. Just make sure, otherwise, it'll be limited to just the panelists. So make sure you change that setting on there. Secondly, if you have a question you want our panelists to entertain, down at the bottom, use the Q&A functionality, and then you can upvote the questions that you want to hear more about. Last couple things before we start this conversation, the Cuseum team is putting together an ebook on changes in alumni relations and engagement. We're excited to include insights from a variety of different industry professionals. So we're going to open up a poll in this webinar in a few minutes with a couple questions just about your experiences and your thoughts. Take a few seconds to do that. You don't have to do it immediately. Do it whenever you like, but we would appreciate it. On to the webinar. So 2020, wow. Quite an unprecedented year here for universities and alumni associations. So a lot of challenges, a lot of innovation and transformation as well, though. So the nature of alumni relations has really changed significantly over the course of this calendar year, as many organizations have adapted to world events like the pandemic, revamped their engagement strategies, and found new success with digital and virtual channels. So we've got an awesome panelist lineup today. We have Gerri Randlett, the Assistant Vice President of Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving at Babson College. We have Sharrard, the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at Central Michigan University. And we have Imani Davis, the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at Northwestern Alumni Association. So to our panelists, thank you for being here. Let's go around the room real quick with some introductions. Quick overview of your role, maybe a little bit about how your team is organized and your organization. So Gerri, I'm going to hand you the mic to start us off.
Awesome, thank you so much. So as Dan said, my role is the Assistant Vice President of Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving. My team sits within the larger umbrella of advancement for Babson College. And so within the advancement umbrella are the major gifts officers, my team, obviously, advancement services, research, and an events team. And we have 2 goals within my particular team, and that is alumni participation, which our goal for this year is 35%, and alumni engagement. So we have a 20,000 person event attendee goal that we have for this year.
Amazing. And Summer, how about you?
Yes, hello everybody. I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at Central Michigan University. So we are in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I am a part of a small team, alumni engagement team. It's myself and my 2 other colleagues. And our role between the 3 of us is to provide programming and events for our alumni population, which is right around we like to say 236,000 living alumni is the number we go with. So our small team is small but mighty. We do have one of our colleagues that works out of our Detroit outreach office, and then Brittany and myself work out of our main campus in Mount Pleasant. But we, like many I'm sure on this call, have shifted to that virtual engagement piece this year quite a bit. So excited to be a part of this conversation and share a little bit about what we learned along the way.
Thanks for being here. And last but not least, Imani.
Hi, everyone. I'm Imani from Northwestern University, and our team sits in a larger alumni relations and development team, which at Northwestern is around like 300 staff members. And then within that is the Northwestern Alumni Association, which there is around a little over 20 of us. And I sit on the programming half of the team. We also have a clubs and communities and volunteers half of the team as well. And then on the programming side of things, I specifically work with very recent alumni as well as graduating seniors in my role leading the student to alumni transition programming. So we have a lot of things there just dedicated to making sure the transition from student to alumni life is as seamless as possible, and that they're getting to know the Alumni Association and all of the great things that we can do for them. So excited to dive into, all of the things that we started as well as pivoted virtually during 2020.
Definitely. Thank you for being here. So Imani, let's actually start with you. Can you talk a little bit about what some of the bigger challenges you faced during 2020, whether they're COVID related or otherwise? Can you talk a little bit about what that's looked like for you?
Definitely. Just from the Northwestern view of things, we are a smaller private college university, and I feel like when 2020 first kicked off, there was a lot of excitement about what the year would bring. It's just a monumental year for the country, as well as like Northwestern just celebrated our 150 years of women initiative, celebrating the year that women were admitted to the university. So that was the year prior. And so just coming off of all of that excitement and programming, definitely excited to get back into things. And I started my current position in the beginning of 2020. And then March came around and everything changed. And so it was definitely a learning curve with learning my new position, learning my new team, and getting into the swing of things with the community at Northwestern, the community that I was serving, and then completely pivoting it to an online experience. So with that, we are very geared towards in-person events usually. And so just seeing what our community wanted in terms of the kinds of new programmings in this new world, like what was still relevant, what wasn't, that was a lot that we took into account with pivoting virtually. We use the word pivot a lot over here at our team. And so that was the biggest question was, what do we do in this new world that not a lot of us are used to? We did have a huge digital component to our programming already. We were already doing webinars. We already have a podcast. A decent amount of digital programming was already going on at Northwestern, but now it was a sense of everyone doing that now. What are the new platforms that we can get on? What are the new ways that we can engage people since everyone was sitting at home?
For sure, and I'll be interested to dig a little deeper into that too, being an organization that already had a lot of those, foundational aspects in place. How did you have to pivot, adjust, or cut through the noise, later on? So I look forward to talking about that a little bit later. Summer, how about for you? What have been some of the bigger challenges that y'all have faced in 2020, pandemic or otherwise?
Yeah, so I think for us, just, like Imani said, we were excited for 2020. We always have those like annual events that we're looking forward to, and our alumni as well. We do some reoccurring events and everyone's like marking it on their calendars. They know when things are happening. And so coming in, I think our biggest challenge was like making that decision that those types of events weren't going to be able to happen face to face, and kind of grieving them a bit, that we, postponed or we had to shift them a little bit. Like our grandparents U program, that's one of our like signature events. People love that event, and we weren't going to bring them to campus. That's the high risk population. We weren't going to bring them onto campus, and that was really heartbreaking for us at first. And we weren't ready to just cancel it and say see you next year. We really saw that as an opportunity to shift and pivot. We keep saying we need pivot t-shirts for 2020. My director keeps saying that. So and shift and try to still make that connection. Like, we are in this field because we love connecting with people. We like that interaction, and to not have that like in our traditional sense, that was kind of challenging for us at first too. But I think as the year has gone on and the virtual world has been more accessible, I guess, and more user-friendly in a way, we have found our footing a bit in that field, I think.
For sure. That's great. And Gerri, how about for you? What have some of those challenges looked like on your side?
I think very similar to what has already been said. Similar to Imani, we were coming off our 100th year celebration. So our centennial celebration happened in 2019. And leading up to that, we had traveled significantly around the world. We have about 43,000 alumni in 121 countries. And so we had been doing a lot of traveling to people where they lived so that when it was time for our 100th anniversary, they actually would come back to campus. And so we had over 350 events in the year of 2019 around the world. And certainly we're hoping to continue that momentum going into 2020. Started the year off strong, and then obviously March, everything came to a screeching halt. My last day in the office was March 16th. I think the other things that were interesting for Babson specifically were we have a new president. He started in July of 2019. And so in his first year, he had put together a new strategic plan that was then launched in July of 2020 amid COVID. And part of that plan was that I absorbed the annual fund team. So I had to take on a new team in this remote environment, which I found kind of difficult. I'm a very hands-on person, and I, to bring a team together and try to build synergies and make sure everybody felt good about the transition of coming together was kind of difficult in this remote setting. On a more higher level scale in terms of what I think everybody was facing, keeping as we message out to alumni, keeping a balance of support for us and the college and our students versus them, because obviously so many of our alumni were impacted by COVID. We have a lot of entrepreneurs at Babson, for those of you who don't know. And so, people are losing businesses or trying really hard to hold on to businesses. And so making sure we were being supportive of them while we were also asking them to support our students with internships and jobs and money. I think not being together as a team was really difficult. We're a very creative, very close team. And now we've just grown, with this additional group of team members, and not being together in person, I think was really difficult. And then I think the financial hardships of the college. I think we all probably have felt that our colleges have suffered financially, and what that has meant for our budgets, and having to just try to figure out ways to be really creative in how we program and engage our alumni.
That's so true. It's, we talked a little bit about the idea of the pivot or the adjustment or the innovation, whatever word you want to use, to describe it. Everything that 2020 has thrown at us has been a forcing function of change, of figuring out a new way to do things. So, Gerri, kind of staying with you. By the way, folks, I'm going to make this poll live. You can do it now, or you can do it later. It's up to you. But I'm just going to send that out into the ether. Question for you, Gerri. Have you undertaken any new projects or initiatives in response to the challenges, that the pandemic has brought on?
Yes, so many. I will mention a few, but I'm happy to talk offline with anybody about anything else. Immediately, we created a new part of our website, and we created new online resources for alumni. And those included things like alumni-owned businesses that were health and wellness, that were kids resources, that were companies that sold great online products. If you wanted to create a home gym, all those kinds of things. We also immediately went to work on webinars. So that's something, unlike Imani, we had not had that in our sort of our normal doings. And so what we did, we're very lucky here because we are a small school and we have a lot of really wonderful faculty that we always work with. And so we went to our center heads. We have about 8 centers on campus, centers and institutes like the Blank Center for Entrepreneurship, the Cutler Center for Finance, the Institute for Family Entrepreneurship. And we went to them and we said, guys, we need to get some programming online and we need to do it quickly. And so we worked with all of our center heads to get something online, and we created this series called Babson Discover. And we did probably one a week for this whole time. We just started doing our last one today at 3:30. And so, that's something that we did right away. We also created something called Babson Connect. So we've always done a program called Babson Connect New York, Boston, Miami, San Francisco, as well as something called Babson Connect Worldwide, which is a program that we work together with our career development offices. And so we do some kind of a panel, and then post the panel, we have alumni who are business partners, and they'll work with students and do interviews with students. And so we decided, let's make Babson Connect online. And so we decided to make it really high end. And so we've had people like Elle and Pitbull and all these really wonderful people come together on really fun topics. We've done some on global health. We've done a lot of really interesting things that have gotten a lot of alumni engaged, and that's been really great. We also did some really fun things. So like we created fantasy football. Obviously, again, had to go through legal and risk and do all the right things. But, you know, we're down to 3 people who are left from the 55 who started with us. So that was really fun. We also did a virtual golf tournament, which was new. On Thursday of this week, we're doing our first ever holiday lights. So for local alumni to drive through the campus, we've purchased a ton of blow ups and lights, and we've worked with our facilities team to you know, get that going and up and running. And we're really excited, and we sold out. We had 250 spots and we sold out. But Dan, if you want to come through with your family, you let me know.
I definitely will.
Because you're close by. The other thing that we did was we've never done a great job with career services for our alumni, and given COVID and the challenges that people have faced in terms of their work environment, we felt that that was really important. And so we went to our alumni association, the Babson Alumni Association board, and we said, is there any way you would give us some money to purchase the VMOC tool? So it's a resume tool. And so they gave us the money and we purchased that and we launched that for our alumni. We also launched an alumni job board. So alumni to alumni. We've always used Handshake through our career centers, but we decided we wanted something that was just alumni to alumni, and that's had great success. So those are just some of the things that we've done.
I mean, I'm going to go back and re-listen to this and take notes. No, a lot of great ideas, a lot of creative things. And, you know, Summer, how about for you? Any unique initiatives or projects that you've undertaken, you know, this year?
Yeah, I think our virtual events for sure. So some of the examples of virtual events that we've done, our first one that we did was a zoo tour. So we partnered with a zoo in Ohio, and they kind of walked us through the zoo. We've done a few different tasting events. We have some alum that own a winery in Traverse City in northern Michigan. So we got to do a tasting with them. We've done some beer. We did a Detroit City Distillery tasting. That's been kind of fun. One that has been a fan favorite was our DIY like charcuterie 101. So people registered. They got a wooden Michigan shaped board with the Action C on it, and then we had one of our chefs on campus kind of walk us through how to build a charcuterie board, and that one was a success. People really enjoyed that one as well. And then just in general, because 2020 has been so chaotic of all sorts of things too, in addition to virtual events, my colleague Katie, she has really taken the lead and initiative to bring diversity, equity, and inclusion to the forefront of our operations as well. And she has, you know, with her leadership, created a DEI committee within our advancement department, which has been so great. And within that committee, we've had like action items that we can really incorporate into our operations to be as inclusive as we can be, which I think is so important, and I think very relevant after this year and always. And another fun thing that our team necessarily did not have a role in at all, but something that our alumni did, they were seeking that social interaction. Like people wanted to connect and they wanted to reminisce on their time at Central and things. And so a few alums started decade-based like Facebook groups. And now we have like an 80s Facebook group, 90s, 2000s, 2010, and they're popping. Like people love them. Like over the 4 groups, we have over like 25,000 people engaging on these Facebook groups, and it's just positive. It's all positivity. Like anybody remember like having this drink at this bar and all these things, or like, hey, remember meeting on campus? And that has been such a light of positivity for us and our group. And we as a team we didn't even start it. It just happened organically. And I think that has been like the best thing that has come out of 2020. It's been so fun to see everybody connecting on there.
Absolutely. I mean, those connections are incredible, especially when you get the ability to unite a couple folks that were, you know, from years and years ago. They're like, do you remember what this dorm was called? I lived on the 3rd floor, you know, whatever it is.
Yep.
Very cool. How about you, Imani? You know, what kind of projects and initiatives have you undertaken, you know, this year in response to the challenges?
Definitely. It's been a really great just seeing the team adapt to and just like be creative during this time. I've been like so impressed, and I have like such amazing colleagues at Northwestern who have done and continue to do amazing things in this new world that we're living in. But as a whole, one of the things that was launched in response to the pandemic and COVID-19 in general was Virtually Purple. So that is kind of like our all resource page. So that is a newsletter that goes out weekly, and it's about to change up its scheduling a little bit, but it was going out with all of the virtual content that we were generating, and also to an all alumni audience. So it was going to everyone. And there was also a resource page created with all of this new stuff that we were doing that was coming out from our teams digitally. And some of those things were our small business directory, which was new. And that's been such a great resource, I'm sure, for everyone involved, not only our alumni, but also us, to then create and curate events for the alumni for that. Sorry for just beeping in the background.
No worries.
And then with that, we've had like some beer tastings, some wine tastings with alumni who have these small businesses, so we can give them some publicity, as well as like have these great events that our alumni really like. And we've also done the job board with Handshake, in conjunction with Handshake. So alumni have access to that, which has been, there's been a really great response to that as well. And then we have a book club as well. So our first book club was launched more towards the beginning of COVID. And then we have a second one launching now too, which will be geared towards more targeted topics. So say 1 year is like social justice, and then another year would be could be dedicated to women authors, maybe women alumni authors. So that will give us some more flexibility. So we have like a general one, as well as like a more focused one where people can dive into deeper topics. And there's been a great response to that too. We've had Just Mercy as one of the books for the book club. And there was just like such a great response, especially with everything going on this year in regards to social justice and protests and the death of George Floyd. And alumni have been responding really well to the even just pivot of the topics that we have in the digital space. So one of the most attended virtual events that we had was an active bystander training. And so you can just see like through the alumni engagement, like how poignant these like topics are. And then on my end, I started this kind of initiative with the senior programming that I do called Grad Chat. So we'll have like really short and like on topic conversations with young alumni, and we'll just like kind of get to the heart of their journey after college. And so we can have live participants, as well as like have that recording, which is kind of like in a podcast format. So not only do we have our big podcast with our amazing alumni guests, but also now some different outlets where we can talk to other alumni. As well as just pivoting some of the topics that we were already doing, like the active bystander training. Something that we did with the seniors was a 08 alumni talk. So trying to get some alumni who were coming out of the recession and had that experience to talk about, having them come to an event for seniors and then give some insight on that, which was kind of the closest thing that we could give them in such an unprecedented time. So those are just some of the things that we were able to do.
That is a lot of things. I mean, amongst the three of you, just like what a list of unique ideas. So Imani, kind of staying with you, can you talk a little bit about how you've been working with your campus partners, like development and career services this year?
Definitely. So we love our campus partners. We try and engage our campus partners as much as possible, especially on the student side of things. And we also have like a big entrepreneurship center, just as Gerri was saying. And we actually, for that 08 recession talk, we actually had a faculty member from that section of the university that was able to moderate the conversation. Shout out to Heather, she was amazing. And it was just great to have her expertise, like working in entrepreneurial endeavors for so many years, and then talking about just applying that entrepreneurship mindset that Northwestern really tries to instill in students, and then moderating that conversation with that expertise. What we also have been trying to do is a mental health workshop that we're planning for this upcoming spring for our senior slate of programmings. And this is something that I'm really passionate about like post-grad, mental health, really just continuing to take care of yourself, even without the resources that you were then provided in college. Like, what are the other ways that I can, continue taking care of my mental health? And so we're excited to potentially partner with like a student organization that's dedicated to mental health, as well as the on-campus counseling center. So any way that we can like get involved with our campus partners is something that we want to do, as well as even getting involved with their initiatives. So this past year, I was a part of the planning committee for our All Black graduating ceremony, which turned virtual and ended up being like a great event. And that is put on by our multicultural student affairs. So just a large amount of collaboration, whatever we can do, whether they're contributing to our programs or we're contributing to theirs, we're always trying to get involved.
That's fantastic. And I love the fact that you're, responding to, the current need at the current time. Like mental health is, super forward, social justice is super forward. These are things that are on, people's minds. So I think it's amazing that you're, able to be agile in response to those. Summer, how about for you? How have you worked with campus partners, development, career this year?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny. We have partnered with our Career Development Center as well to do more online panels. And we work with them to get alumni to come up and speak on those panels. And one of the topics we did, we brought like 2008, 2009 alums to come talk like, how do you enter the workforce in a recession and things? And that was a really beneficial chat, I think, for the students. So that's been a lot of fun. So we keep that relationship with them fairly close. And I know we have some coming up in 2021 as well that we'll be partnering with them. But of course, like being an advancement, like we always like to keep our relationship with our development officers close at the forefront of what we're doing too, and try to see if they have any prospects that they think we could highlight in our operations and our events. We had a development officer connect us with someone that owned a brewery in North Carolina, and we got to do a tasting in North Carolina, and it was just a really great way to continue that pipeline with the prospects and highlight them, or even we make sure that we communicate what events we have coming up and share it with them, and so maybe they can invite their prospects. I think, and we did this before, like pre-COVID, right? Like that was the purpose. That's what we're trying to do. But I do think that with everything being virtual now, it's almost like easier access. Like you don't have to plan the commute. You don't have to, okay, once I go through here, I got to drive through traffic. Like, no, you just set your computer and log on. And I think that has been really beneficial for us as well. And, just cross campus, like I said, with the charcuterie event, we worked with our catering on campus, and we work closely with our historian at the Clark Historical Library on campus. And he provides a lot of content for us for social media that is really popular and helps us with our trivia nights and things. So we really try to tap into our resources on campus for sure.
Love it. And it's hard to beat the convenience of just turning on your computer.
Yeah.
Not having to get in the car, especially while it's getting cold.
Yes.
So it's, at least for us that are, north of, Georgia. Gerri, how about for you? How are you working with your campus partners?
So I should have probably said this at the beginning, but my team is set up and we have two major buckets. One is regional, so working with regional alumni clubs around the world, and one is affinity based, and that's working directly with our campus partners to bridge the student experience into the alumni experience. So if I was an LGBTQ student, I need to be involved with the LGBTQ alumni affinity group, those kinds of things. So we've always had that synergy. I think this year more than ever, though, we've worked hand in hand as we've had to deliver really important programs virtually. So like all of our Lavender graduation this year was a virtual thing. So we really had to figure out how can we make it still really special, even though we're not going to physically be together. As I mentioned earlier, our career development partners, we've always partnered with them on some programs, but this year they really came in and helped us. Not only did we start the VMOC tool and the job board, but we also put on a lot of webinars related to career-related webinars that they helped to support. And we also started something called Coaches Corner, where we had people from the Career Development Office do one-on-one coaching for alumni. And we've never had that kind of support from our career development team before, so that was really exciting. I was asked by my president to lead a task force for the class of 2020 commencement. So we had to work with a cross-campus collaborative team on figuring out what to do for the class of 2020. And actually, believe it or not, we've been tasked to do the same thing for the class of 21. So we've just brought the band back together for that. And so that was really fun because those were some people who I never really get to partner with, you know, that are doing things that on campus that I'm not really engaged with at all. So that was really fun. I would say the other piece of it, as I mentioned, was in July, because I took over the annual fund team. A lot of our fundraising over, you know, March, April, May into the summer months was really around student need. And our campus partners came in hugely helpful for us. Like, you know, when we wanted to make a video, they were there and they were helpful and they had great ideas for messaging. When we talked to our regional volunteers around the world, they said, you know, something we'd really like to do is have something in the kids' room for them when they arrive. And so we went to our campus partners and we said, what do they need in their room? What are you already providing? And if we did something like this, could you help us facilitate it? And they did, and we raised so much money on that campaign, we called it the Regional Care Package campaign. But I will say, you know, again, we are a small school, and so we've always had a lot of support from our campus partners. I do feel really lucky about that, and I know that it's not the case everywhere. But at Babson, we're really one happy family, and we're really lucky that it comes from the top up, that the campus is, you know, knows that they need to support our efforts.
Absolutely. And Gerri, kind of staying with you, you know, this year we have witnessed really accelerated digital transformation at a lot of alumni organizations, and many of them have had some great success with virtual events, as we've been hearing today. Same with programming. What do you think is the future of virtual events and alumni engagement? You know, especially now that organizations might be seeing a little bit lower engagement with these virtual offerings now than they may have seen earlier in the pandemic. I think we were having a conversation about this earlier today. It's possible that people are a little, you know, zoomed out, or maybe they're, you know, they've got their sights set on the end of the year, or maybe they're just kind of, you know, withdrawn a little bit with everything going on in the pandemic. So can you talk a little bit about what you think the future, you know, looks like?
Well, I don't think it'll go away completely, and I hope it doesn't go away completely. And I say that because I think it's provided us some real tremendous opportunity. So, for example, you know, we do a lot of events, we travel significantly as a team, but I don't go to Australia and I don't go to Africa because, you know, my numbers there are so small, it just doesn't warrant a trip. But we've had alumni from Australia and Africa join these calls, and I think that it's provided real value to them, and they've provided real value to the students on the call. So for example, you know, our Institute for Family Entrepreneurship held a number of different webinars throughout this time period. And you go on those calls and it's parents and faculty and staff and students and alumni, and they're all talking about their shared experience. And I think, you know, again, I think that there are some people who we would never have had the opportunity to have them in a conversation. And so it's really important that they have that opportunity. So I think my hope is we can be together again in person, because that's why I do this work. I talk about, I'm always at my house. My background is where the wild things are. I'm in my children's playroom, and my children are 20 and 18, okay? But I'm like, I want to get out of my cave. I miss people. But at the same time, I think it's important we don't lose sight of the positive things that have come out of it. The other thing that I'll say is that we have some really, as everybody does, some very successful alumni who are very difficult to get to a program wherever we are in the world trying to put on a program. And in this, you know, virtual world, we've had a lot more success getting them to come to an event, because it can be from their office, it can be from, you know, their home, it can be, so we've had a lot more success getting people we've asked to participate in events before as speakers or panelists to attend events, because it's so much easier. To Summer's point, they're not in traffic, they don't have to get on a plane, they're, you know, just coming to us from wherever they are. And what's been really nice is we have a program here called Alumni in the Classroom. So we've always encouraged alumni to come back and participate as a speaker in a classroom, and we do this funding for them when they come. But we've had so many really fun alumni stop into classes virtually. And, you know, so one example, one of our alums, his name is Jamie Siminoff. He created Ring Doorbell that sold to Amazon for $1 billion. And he's just the nicest, most funny human being. And when this first happened and everybody was so sad, especially the seniors, he went to like 10 classes one day, and he just popped in and he like just gave, you know, just words of encouragement. And I think, you know, students having the opportunity to engage in that kind of sort of fun way in a classroom with significant alumni is something that I hope doesn't go away.
For sure. And just speaking of Jamie, there's a great podcast called How I Built This, put on by NPR. And his episode is so funny because he has experienced many ups and downs in his life. And for the longest time, he didn't think Ring Doorbell was going to work. Like they were doing this demo on Shark Tank and they couldn't get it to work. It's just a very funny story. So he's a great, didn't know he was an alum though. That's really exciting. Summer, how about for you? You know, what do you think is the future of virtual events, alumni engagement, especially kind of given the trends that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think that virtual events will stick around. We've been able to reach people, like everyone is saying, that we haven't before. And I do think that Zoom fatigue is real. I think that some people may drop off throughout, but I think that it's important for us to keep showing up for them and being consistent. We do trivia nights the third Tuesday of every month, and like that's consistent. So I think once we kind of get that footing and, you know, maybe one day they will join, like they've been passing off, like, okay, you know what, maybe I will join this time around. We just did gingerbread bake off or build off, I guess, for our event, and it was, you know, 6 p.m. At night, so you just got done from work, just before dinner kind of thing, kind of like that weird limbo time. And we had people joining us, but it was mostly like our team engaging similar to like this, and we weren't seeing a ton of engagement during the actual event. And we're like, oh, okay. But then like after the fact, we had so many like positive feedback, all these pictures and all these families that were sitting behind those screens, creating memories and doing all these fun things. And like, that's the fun part about the virtual events, is like, you don't necessarily see that engagement, or maybe they're not as forefront because they have been in front of that screen all day. They're behind the screen, just hanging out with their family, but still kind of have you in your room, you know? So I think that's kind of a cool way that we can reach. And I just think Zoom fatigue is going to happen, but just being consistent and providing fun opportunities for people to connect and providing that space, I think is going to be the future. I mean, I also hope, and I think we will be in face-to-face 2021, manifesting it now, but I don't know. I think virtual events are here to stay too.
No, I agree. And it's interesting. We were, someone from my team and I were having a conversation earlier today, you know, with another alumni professional. And one of the things that we were talking about is, as we're seeing these trends of, you know, number of folks attending virtual events dropping down, I feel like it's important to be a little bit retrospective about this, because all of a sudden we've been asked to do way more events for most organizations with way more frequency. And so me personally, I might only go to 1 or 2 events from my alma mater a year, but now all of a sudden you're doing an event every month or every other week, and you're asking me to come to most of them. That's not really normal behavior for me. So that might be the expectations are unrealistic. We're trying to get people to maybe even increase their engagement. Secondly, there's every organization I've ever supported in my life is messaging me with a million events that they're hosting and all the different ways to support. So I feel like in so many ways, we've got the same expectations of attendance, yet more events you're doing more work, and it's much more micro focused, where we're doing like lots of small events instead of like a big homecoming, you know, with events associated with that. So I feel like in a lot of ways, we almost need to reframe our expectations or think about what our expectations really should be. And I realize a lot of the pressure on these things it's coming down from the top. Do more events, get more people. You can reach them anywhere. And while it does have those benefits, as we look at the trends, understanding, you know, the direction that things are moving, I think that's an important consideration to make. So
I like that. I feel like it's like the quality over quantity, or, you know, like trying to find that balance of it. But I mean, we find with our events, and this was face-to-face too, but like if they were free, we see that drop off. Like our trivia nights are free, and so we like sell them out, like we have a cap just because of our Zoom account, but we see that drop off. But for events where they pay, or we send something, like, you know, we sent that board for charcuterie, we sent the pint glass for the beer tasting event to their home. When we create that experience and make it more real for them, where they can feel and touch and have those 5 senses, then they're willing to show up because it's part of the experience. It's not just another Zoom meeting, it's an experience. So I think
absolutely,
quality and quantity. I like that point though, Dan. I feel like that's gonna kind of bring me down a little bit. That was good.
Yeah, anything I can do to help. Imani, how about for you? What do you think is the future of, engagement, and what are we looking at in 2021?
Yeah, Gerri and Summer had some great comments of a lot of things that I was thinking as well. But I think you're totally right, Summer, in the quality over quantity and just like creating an experience for alumni too. Zoom fatigue is so real. And a lot of the programming that we pivoted that maybe could have been pivoted differently was the things where maybe we were having like a networking hour with like students and alumni, but like no one really wants to like sit. It's like not the same sitting on Zoom as like being in a cocktail hour like setting with like food and everything. So just like coming to terms with that too. Like this is not going to translate the same as being in person and having those like one-on-one connections. So like what are some other ways, or just like passive ways to create an experience too? So we have like an early graduation reception that we do, and it's definitely just not the same virtually. So we've just pivoted to creating a really nice like passive programming email that students can receive with like all kinds of resources that will come from the Alumni Association, as well as a video message from our board president. So just like making sure that it still fits the needs and doesn't create like unnecessary work for something that may not engage people in the same way. And I'm really excited to think about like hybrid events too, as we do start to get into like in-person programming and what that's going to look like with all of the digital engagement that we now have learned and like have in our skill set. Like how is that going to combine with like in-person events when we get back to that? We have a big event that we do called New Chapter, New Neighbors. And that is kind of a event in the fall that's like a global networking event for students that just graduated and are going into their new cities, ways for them to connect with alumni in the area through like a series of happy hours like on the same day. We kind of pivoted to that to all virtual this year. We were like, okay, these talks and panels that we did that we've never done before in a virtual space are doing really well. Would that be something to combine with the in-person programming for next year? So people, if they can't go to those happy hours, still have something to engage with and learn about the alumni in their area, but also having that like one-on-one connection of the happy hours. So I'm excited to think about those hybrid events and how that will play into the future. Also with our campus partner question that we were talking about, big shout out to my supervisor Suresh, who is on the call actually, and is like the king of campus partners. So it's a huge reason why we even have a lot of those connections. So shout out to Suresh.
Love that. So real quick reminder, if you haven't done the poll yet, most of you have done it. Feel free to do that now. I'll end it in a couple minutes. But, I think the next question, Imani, that I'm wondering is, what do you think has been the biggest silver lining for your organization during COVID? What are some positives coming out of this?
Definitely. I think it is that, we are big into trying to engage our alumni globally. So we have a lot of alumni all over the world, especially a lot in our Asian countries, China, and especially China. And just the connections that we've seen there, where we had a panel during that New Chapter, New Neighbors event that I talked about with like club leaders from all over. So one of those was from Hong Kong. It was our club leader from Hong Kong, and she was able to sit in. Like that panel probably never could have happened with someone from New York and California and Chicago and Hong Kong. Like granted, she got up very early for us for that panel, but it was a success. And just like it would be really hard to have people simultaneously like in their setting. Like everyone would have to travel, and then that's like a big added expense. So it was definitely, it's been a silver lining to engage more people virtually than we have before. Like our webinar and podcast numbers have gone up a ton. So that's just like more people who weren't engaged before, but now are because of this new virtual space. And I think it's also allowed us to listen more to our alumni and like what they want. Because I think another thing in this next phase of alumni relations is just like these more targeted topics that people like want to talk about and want to discuss, and being able to engage around those. So having more conversations about social justice, having more conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and these more like poignant topics that people want to learn about and discuss and like hear from their alma mater about. I think that's been a silver lining as well. It's just like increased communication across the board, and being able to stretch to different places too. And another thing that I will say about the future of programming is, yeah, just that heightened engagement. Like it bums me out when I get to a Zoom webinar and the chat is off. And I'm like, okay, I'm watching TV. I am watching TV. So just being able to talk and still engage with people, even though we're not in the same physical space, is just like, that's definitely been a silver lining.
For sure. And I mean, your situation is even more interesting in that you had just joined Northwestern and you get to know your colleagues for like a few weeks or months, and then all of a sudden never see each other at all. So certainly a more unique situation than many. Summer, how about for you? What do you think has been the biggest silver lining in your experience?
I think to what everybody is saying too, of like the way that we've been able to reach people where they are. We always send out a post-event survey for all of our events, and the feedback when we always get like, what, how can we make this event better, or like leave a comment for the alumni relations team. And so many people are just so grateful and thankful that we provided an opportunity. And we've had a few people say, we've never been able to attend a face-to-face event. Can't wait to see you soon one day. And all these things, like, I think that has been so great, and that kind of like feeds our passion as a team. But just a positive lining too, I also started this position at the beginning of this year. And I had a little bit of a history with the department, but I started as a full-time staff member at the beginning of this year, and joining back into the team and like then having to do everything virtually, it was, it's a challenge, but I feel like our team really just excelled and really found and like lean into each other, like where our strengths and weaknesses are. And like, I'm so proud and humble of our team to be able to go forth and really mesh well together as a team. And I think that's a big part of our success. And being forced to do this like remotely and virtually, I think has really allowed us to grow as professionals. And I think that's moving forward. I think that's probably the silver lining of this year.
Absolutely. Gerri, what about for you? What do you think has been the silver lining?
Yeah, I echo everything that's been said. When I thought about this question, what I was thinking was how creative my team has been able to be, right? Because we haven't had to do business as usual. We haven't been in airports and on planes and going to 5,000 events in India and all these other things. So we've had time to really think and be creative. And we've done some really, fun and exciting things like damn good cooking on Instagram and Green Friday flash sale, and like we created work clothes, so like sweatpants that we sold to our alumni. So we've done all these really fun things that we never would have had an opportunity to do. And then I think Summer really hit the nail on the head. I think, what used to be a very specialized skill set for my team, doing something like a webinar or, a virtual event of any kind, we all now have that skill set. And I think that's a wonderful professional development opportunity. And we've learned several different platforms, right? So like we just did an event the other night where we needed to have breakout rooms for employers, and we had to figure out what to use, and we used Brazen, and that's a platform we had never used before. So learning how to use that, and learning about the different resources on campus to help us when we did our back to Babson, our not quite back to Babson, which is our reunion. We did it virtually this year. And we found out that there's this whole IT department called MAPS that has this green room and can do all these really fun things for us. And, so I think that we've learned about a lot of new resources, and I think we've developed really good skills. And I think we've been really creative in a time, where people could get down and out, and instead we've just decided to be really positive.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, and I think there's just so many good takeaways that have come out of the, come out of the happenings of the last year or so. It's been pretty amazing. So, I think the next question that I'm wondering too, beyond pandemic response, let's zoom out for a second here. Beyond like the micro last 9 months, what trends or significant trends in alumni relations have you been seeing over the last few years? Gerri, let's start with you on this one.
Well, so just so you guys know, as a background for me, I've worked in higher education for a long time, but my background is in counseling and student engagement and student development theory. And I've only joined the alumni office about 5 years ago. Well, actually probably more than that now. I don't know, I'm old. And so I would say that I didn't know a lot prior to coming into this office in terms of alumni engagement. What I have seen at Babson in the last few years particularly is that we are really more affinity based in our programming, and there's got to be a lot of segmentation. I can't remember who said it earlier, but you know, people tune out, and they also have all these opportunities on their own to engage, whether it's through social media, and they, you know, they're friends with each other on Facebook. They don't really need the alumni office anymore. So figuring out how to engage them in a way that makes the most meaning for them, how are they most connected to the college, and how can we connect them back through that affinity, I think is critically important. So that's really been, you know, when I started on this team, we had 1 person working on affinity. We now have 4 people working on affinity, because we have really, you know, just blossomed that kind of work that we've done. So I'd say that that's been a real significant change that I've seen in the last several years. And, you know, again, you know, that's very Babson specific. We don't have a lot of class rah-rah, class spirit kind of stuff happening. You know, there's none of that going on. So, but I would say that that's probably been the most, and the idea that, you know, you kind of have to be a sleuth in some ways, right? So our alumni are on social media, but they might not be on our social media sites. They might not be on my Facebook page, you know, the Babson College alumni page. They're on some other page, but maybe I'm friends with them and I find out they had a baby and I send them a card with a baby bib. Now they want to talk to me. So you know, I feel like we've had to learn how to sleuth a little bit more than we used to.
For sure. And I think that's one of the challenges, is trying to unify all these disparate places that people are congregating, whether it's on Facebook or on Instagram or in this, you know, new parents group. That's one of the biggest challenges I think posed by the digital era. Summer, how about for you? What do you think, you know, beyond pandemic response, what significant trends are you observing, you know, in alumni relations in the last few years?
It's interesting because it's like, I was going to say like social media and like the just virtual world, but it definitely was not the way we thought it was going to be, the way it turned out. But like, for social media, like how are we reaching people? Are we going to email them? Are we reaching them only through social media? Well, not everybody has social media. So how are we reaching that? Do we send them mailing pieces and things like that? Like I even know with our alumni magazine, we've scaled back the actual mailing of the magazines quite a bit. So it's just trying to alter, like it is a digital world now, even more so, but just reaching alumni in that way too. And yeah, like organically making those connections, like Gerri said, like we do that quite a bit, like, oh, someone's having a baby, or oh, someone so-and-so, and then we send them things like that. But I think that in general too, of like navigating, okay, how are we going to reach the alumni, because maybe like the snail mail is not going to cut it for certain things. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting. It's interesting to see. And when we send out our post-event surveys, we ask people, how did they hear about our events? And it's interesting if they did email, social media, and like, or like a friend or our website. And we are seeing like a wide variety, like it's pretty split. And so like that just proves to us that is reaching. You need to do all of the things to communicate people. You just have to do all the avenues. It's kind of interesting.
For sure. And Imani, how about for you? You know, what do you think, what trends have you been observing in the last few years?
Yeah, with like just kind of diving into things when I did come into this position of like alumni engagement and like what we're seeing at Northwestern, which I now see have been trends across the industry, is the personalized approach, which we touched on with Gerri and Summer, with even just in digital communications too. So like email segmentation, like the different things that, the different outcomes that can bring along. So just like having someone's name in the email, which is you're able to do by automation, or just having like other little personalized lines and messages can really like grab people's attention nowadays when there's like so much to grab their attention. I feel like I heard in a webinar like a while ago of like competing with like Netflix and Hulu and all the streaming services, like all of the entertainment things in this new digital space, which is partly true. Like there is many things that people can be doing at their time. So just how can we get them focused on the university and the connections that they have there, and even strengthening those connections too. And then also what we're seeing at Northwestern is like our alumni base, because our student base is like getting more diverse, because of a number of initiatives of just like increasing racial diversity on campus, as well as like Pell Grant eligibility, getting more first gen low income students on campus. Our then alumni base is changing as a result of that. So I feel like that's happening at other schools too. So like, what are the new ways that these populations want to connect and engage with the university that is different from past generations? So maybe like we have a new affinity-based mentorship program coming out, which we know will fill in a lot of needs for a lot of different alumni. That'll be like LGBTQ based, as well as like our racial affinity groups too. So what are those new ways that people want to engage with us and what they want to see?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. So I've got one last question. Imani, I'm going to start with you. What do you think is one major takeaway you'd want folks that are watching to kind of bring back to their organization that you've learned or you've observed?
Yeah, I would just say definitely just listening to your alumni. Like we, at the beginning, did a couple of focus groups with our recent alumni, as well as those graduating, just to see like not just what do you want, because like that's such a big question for people, but what have you been doing with your time? What's been grabbing your attention lately? What are the ways that you've enjoyed connecting with like the university, and then gathering your data based upon that, and then like what you're hearing outside of that too, just in like little conversations with your alumni, just picking up on that kind of stuff, which can really make a huge difference in your programming and what you choose to do with your community.
Absolutely. Summer, how about you? What's one big takeaway you'd want everyone watching to take back?
I think one takeaway would be less is more, or our team always says KISS, keep it stupid simple. That's what we try to remind ourselves. You want to do all the things and really do all the details and nitty gritty and make that experience over the top, but less is more. I think don't get caught up in the details, and your alumni will appreciate the opportunity that you are giving them regardless, and just keep it simple. There's simplicity, quality over quantity. That's going to be my takeaway as well.
Awesome. And Gerri, take us home.
I would say even the impossible is possible with the right attitude and help. And I think, when we all got sent home on March 16th, we were like, what do we do? And, you just realize that you can do lots of different things and you should try new things, and really look around you and see what resources are available to you, because there's a lot of really smart people on college campuses who can help you do things that you didn't think were possible. So
there sure are. Well, to all three of the panelists, thank you so much for being here. Amazing. So many great insights. I can't wait to go back and rewatch this. Speaking of, we recorded this. We'll post the recording a little bit later today on the Cuseum website. This is our final Alumni Hour webinar of 2020. So if you want to go back and watch any of the past ones, you can do that. Keep an eye out. Next year, we'll be back early 2021. And if you've got any ideas on things you want us to cover, you can email me directly, dan@cuseum.com, or you can email just hello@cuseum.com. Any future topics, feedback, insights, whatever you're willing to share. Again, we're writing this ebook at the top of the hour. I mentioned that, so stay tuned for that. We'll keep you posted there. And I hope everybody has a safe, a healthy, a happy holiday season and a happy new year. And we look forward to seeing you in 2021. So stay safe. Thanks so much to our panelists again, and thanks for everyone for joining.